All right, I'm sitting under the apple trees, raspberries behind me, and kind of dodging the sun. It is the end of raspberry season. I've kind of picked through. There might be just a couple left on here, but it's pretty well spent, and it is time to start thinking about how can I get the best fruit production for next year. So we're gonna make a little video on that. Hopefully this will be helpful. Just kind of show you what things look like now. I'll talk about how to take care of them for next year, kind of cleaning them up, getting them all trellised, picking through which vines to keep and all that. So hopefully this is helpful for you. Enjoy today's video. So behind me here are the row of raspberries that I keep, and a lot of raspberries are, they grow on the second year's growth. So first year they grow the vines, you can fact most of the growth that's pretty tall here, pretty lengthy. Some of it's kind of gone out. That's next year's fruit, so that's the new vines from this year. And then in a moment I'll come through and show you the vines from last year. They're more kind of brown and starting to even look more withered as they've produced the fruit and they are done for the year. They're done for their life, and so it's kind of a two-year cycle on how the raspberries typically will grow. There are some other varieties out there that do growth on the first year or on the farther part of the branch. You prune it back and then there's fruit the next year on the first 2/3 of the branch are the vines, but that's different than most raspberries and the ones I have here. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take you through and show you how to take care of these. First thing is I wanna get the old growth, so the stuff that grew all the new berries, I wanna get that out of here and cleaned out. And so I'm gonna go through, I'll kind of dive you into take you to the bush to show you how you can tell the difference. We're gonna cut that stuff out, and then we're gonna go through and take a look at all the new growth that's here. We're gonna pick some of our strongest, best canes and kind of thin it out so that the fruit we get next year has plenty of sunlight when it comes time. We'll get bigger berries and healthier berries versus having just everything growing in there. It's still a way you can do it, but I found I have a little bit better fruit production and better fruit if I kind of thin it out a bit, because it does spread with the health. And then we'll just talk about some maintenance to get it ready for continuing through the summer into the fall and into next year, just taking care of that. So let's start by diving in. Let me show you what I've got here. I'm gonna take you through and kind of show you the trellis situation I have, what it looks like now. We're gonna go inside and we'll take a look at the old vines and start cutting those out, and hopefully this is helpful for you. All right, so this is probably a 40-foot row, maybe 30-40-foot row of raspberries, and moved this over here a few years back. Transplanted it from another spot in the yard, and it does really well. You can see the new growth, some of it's falling over. A lot of it is shooting super tall, and so I'm gonna end up putting that around the trellis, kind of curling that around for the fruit production for next year. But mixed in here is lots of old growth. A lot of it is, it's got remainders of some berries. The wood, in fact, if you can get in here and look, you'll see a lot of it is kind of brown, woody, versus the new stuff has, if you look here, very green, fresh, new growth, looks very healthy. Again, the old stuff, woody. There's still some green on there, but it's spent. In fact, oh, there's a berry right there. All right. Oh, there's another berry. So I could probably wait another week to do this, but I've got time today to clean it up. So, yeah, you can see here scraps of the berries. Here's another look at the vines from the backside. You can see lots of this new growth here, just shooting all over, not cleaned up yet. And I usually let that go, and then when I clean out the old growth, I then tuck that and kind of pick which parts I'm going to keep. So, as I go in here, what I'm looking for, I usually start down here, and I go down into the lower parts where it's coming out of the ground, and I'm looking for anything that is brown. So this woody brown growth, that's the old growth, and then the new growth is green. So I leave the green, I cut all the brown, everything down to the ground. I just come down here with my snippers and cut that back, and I'll leave anything that's the light green, anything that's new growth, and then we'll come back and choose which ones we're going to keep. So you can see here most of these will have, there's woody growth and there's green growth. Green, woody. So you're always going to have the new stuff, and there's usually at least twice as many of the new growth as the old growth, sometimes 3 times as much. So that's the plan. So I'm about to dive into the vines, and what I like to do is I like to start at the bottom and go through and cut the old growth from the bottom, so everything is just free at the bottom as I go up above and start pulling things out and cutting pieces out. I know that nothing's attached below that I want to keep. Basic tools you just need some clippers, Gloves, a lot of times raspberries have the little thorn, so it's always a little extra nice to have. And I love to have a knee pad, something to put my knees on because I'm on the ground a fair amount, cutting the bottom stuff out. So that's pretty much all you need, and let's dive in. So again, here's the old growth. Come down and just clip that, set that aside, come through. I'm not really worried about pulling it out yet. Okay, old growth. All right, as we dive in, I'm looking here. I got my old growth and I got the new growth, so I'm just gonna come through, go as close to the bottom as I can, cut that back. Not necessarily pull it out. I might cut out a piece just to get it out of there. Here's another nice thick old growth piece. Sometimes I'll cut it into sections to start clearing some space in here. Here's another old growth piece. So you can see I'm taking kind of 2-foot sections or so and just pulling them back so I can get some space to start diving in here and working. Coming back. So that's what we'll be left with as we go through this, is I'll have all these nice green first year growth, and it'll be fairly cleaned out in here. As I get a lot of that old growth out, it's going to really open up the light and what you can see in here. Let's go on to another section. And again, there's 4 new growth, 1 old growth. There's 2 new growth, 1 old growth. So definitely more new growth than old growth because I pruned out last year the old growth. So as I cut the bottom stuff out, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll kind of clear out a spot and then I'll start working my way up, and then because I have this trellis which is made of a braided wire line, I don't want to cut that obviously, and some of that is wrapped around. I'll go through and cut the top pieces, usually in smaller pieces, whatever is easy to pull out, and I'll just start clearing out an area, and you're going to see real quick that you'll have like a bare section, you'll have some new growth, but compared to the amount of foliage and vines and stuff from the second year growth, it's going to be cleared out quite a bit, which is going to provide a great atmosphere for the new growth to grow. So let's now work our way up and start cleaning out some of the top parts. Alright, so you can see through here it's pretty well cleared out of all the old growth. So this is now just anything that's new from this first year. There might be some scraps here and there that I gotta pick through, but let me walk you through, kind of show you what this looks like, and then we're gonna start organizing it. A couple things I want to do when I do that is I want to go through and I'm looking for any like small kind of wimpy vines. Not as interested in those. Those aren't going to produce much fruit. Anything that's big, strong growth, I'd kind of like to have one for every, whether it's foot to 2 feet of space, and I've kind of got it scattered around. So I just want to make sure I don't have a whole bunch of really good thick stalks all in the same area and kind of growing on the same part of the trellis. So I like to kind of spread it out. So I'll pick kind of the best of the stuff in one area, and I'll show you that as I go through it. Also, as I was taking out the old growth, there's going to be a few things in here that are damaged from maybe I stepped on it or bent it, whatever. So if there's something that's broken or looks like it has a problem, I'll go ahead and cut that out. And this is going to allow for, I still have another couple months of growing season, so this is going to allow for the energy of the plant to go heavy into next year's growth and not worry about the vines that were pretty well spent from the fruit this year. So I want to give the priority to next year now, and so with the sun and the moisture and just the time to grow, I want the energy in these. So I'll take you through that in a little bit, but let's dive in. Let me show you kind of what this looks like. So you can see through here, it's much more open. Lots of gaps, and I don't really care too much about the gaps down here in the bottom. I want this thing growing up on the trellis up higher. That's where it's easy to pick the fruit. Kind of keeps it from falling over. But now's the process where you can see, here's a great example. In fact, I come in here to this area and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe even 9 really good stalks growing up. And a lot of it's leaning over into the next area over there, the marionberries, or up against the cherry tree. So I'm going to go through here and I'll probably pick 3 at the most that survive that and take out the rest of them. So I'll find out which ones look the healthiest, strongest, tallest. In fact, back here, you can see there's, what is that, 2 back there. So I'll take one of those 2, and whatever the biggest, longest one is, keep that, toss the other. And so the idea here is, and you can see my wired trellis runs through these. I'll tighten this up before too long. All right, here's the cutting. I've got this 4 new bits of growth here, and I got the little tiny one. Don't need that. I'll cut that one back down to 3. I might keep 2 of these. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this one here that's smaller, and now I'm left with 2. I'll come back and see if I want to keep both those or just one of those. I'll probably just keep one, but in fact, I can see this already. This one's nice and long, healthy. The other one's not quite there, so that one will get cut out. As I finish up cleaning this up, kind of thinning it out, just picking the biggest, strongest branches, one thing I want to point out, and I don't know if you can see this behind me, but there are several new raspberry vines that are creeping up, but they're outside of my row. They're like 6 inches, a foot. They keep trying to expand. And I've got the other thing on the other side where I've got an asparagus row over here with really good thick compost, and so I've got some raspberry shoots that are starting to shoot up next to the asparagus. So as I go through here, I'm also picking and choosing, okay, is it strong but it's outside my row? It's got to go. And a lot of times I'll just even dig up the roots. They're pretty easy to dig up when they're new on the outside. So I want to keep this thing contained kind of 1 foot beyond my trellis on each side at the most, but most of it inside of that area, because it's going to spread next year when all the new growth comes. So I'll go through here and pick and choose what's inside of the boundaries that I want, and go from there. Yeah, you can see here, that's a good 3 feet outside of the trellis line. Now, not just because it's leaning over, I'm looking at where it's at, but like this one here, nice good start to some growth, but it's outside. I'll keep that big one there, and this one's going to go. And then same thing over here. This is the end of my trellis. I'm okay with a couple of those, but if they start creeping out here towards my wall, I want to have a little walkway through there. So anything that's outside the trellis is going to go, and then these ones that are hanging out, I'll tie those or push those back inside the trellis in a moment. Here's the asparagus, and a nice, beautiful, healthy stalk growing, but that's outside. That's kind of my walkway closer to the asparagus. So even though this one's leaning over that way, I can tip that one back in and be fine. So I'll come back and do that in a moment. All right, one of the final things I'm doing is I've got this thing cleaned out. I've got it thinned out, and I'm kind of down to my final vines that I want to keep for next year. And so this is a good example. This is one of my taller ones. It's young, it's strong, and it's starting to get kind of firm, especially with how thick it is. So what I want to do is I want to get this thing, before too long, I want to get this thing curved over, and I like to grow it kind of horizontally. So we'll kind of curl it and grow it along the line. I want this thing up in the air, spaced out, and a lot of times as this thing is growing horizontally, it's going to send out new growth, and next year the fruit growth will grow out of those horizontal positions a lot of times. So I'm going to go through, and I'm either going that way or this way, and I've already got a couple big ones back here that I can kind of curl around there. So I'm going to turn this thing this way and just very gently see if I can. Now you can tie it. I don't like to tie it because then when I'm taking stuff out the next year, it's a little more challenging to figure out how to get stuff out. So I kind of just weave it around, and that's pretty much it right there. I'll weave it, 2 times through, and maybe in another month I'll come back, and any of the stuff that's growing, I'll just continue to just kind of tuck it in, and as it goes around this wire, it grows out leaves and all that, and it seems to do pretty well. So here's another example. This is a smaller one. So I can get one there, or here's one. And I might have 3 that are kind of weaved together. That's fine. I've got a smaller one here. This one might go in a minute, but not long enough to get in there. I'll just kind of tuck it in. So kind of keep everything that's inside the trellis line. I have my walkways. Try to keep any of these long ones as they grow tall. I'll just kind of curl them around this line so that everything's kind of staying, for me, about that 5 foot, 4 to 5 foot range horizontally. Okay, everything's tucked in, thinned out. This is kind of the finished look. And this is August here in the Northwest. So I've got a couple months of still growing, but you can see it's thinned out quite a bit. Even here I've got a couple gaps that I could put another plant in there to let something grow, but I've got enough vines in here that will have lots of fruit next year. And it seems like, oh no, I cut all that good stuff out, but it'll come back. There'll be plenty of fruit off of this. And there still might be another vine or 2 that shoots up that's in good size, so we'll watch that. So as we complete this now, this thing is set for the next couple months to continue to grow. A couple things I'm going to do is I like to take my grass clippings as I'm mowing the grass. I go and I'll put that down just a couple inches at a time, spread it out as I go through, and let that kind of be a mulch for it. And so I'll have that down, and then in the fall, when the leaves start falling, I always put a layer of leaves and some more grass and just kind of let that mulch and that compost kind of help with the weeds, and also it'll bring nutrients throughout the next 9 months, 10 months before the berries are growing again. But as these vines continue to grow, because they're going to continue to grow for the next couple months, I'll continue to wind them around the trellis, and this thing will slowly fill out. But nothing like next year when the second year growth comes. These things will shoot out lots of new growth, and then the flowers, and then the berries. And so this thing will be a beautiful set. But you take care of it in the first year, you have an amazing second year. And so you know, if you're at a spot right now where it's summertime and your raspberries are finishing up, it's a great time to think about that. You could actually wait weeks, you could wait a couple months. Some people have even left them and let them go, you know, let the old stuff stay there. It looks untidy, fills in the space, could be potential for other issues, but that's nature, and that's how the seeds will spread and all that. So I like to cut those things out and give plenty of good sunlight and good opportunity for the new growth. But yeah, you could let it go and sit. In fact, that would, if you let this thing stay long enough, all that second year growth will turn brown and turn to dead wood. It gets more brittle, which can be a little bit of a challenge trying to take out, but that's an option too. So, well, hopefully this is helpful for today's backyard adventure. There'll be other videos about my berries. I'm sure I really enjoy playing with these, watching them grow. If you have questions, leave those in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and hopefully this is helpful. Have a good life.